Hi, it's Courtney here in the Revive Kitchen, and today we're going to be pressure canning some beef broth. Here I've placed my tools to pressure can. If you've never pressure canned before, you may be thinking, what the heck am I looking at? So let me explain. This is my own little invention. It's just a chopstick that I drew a line on because you want to fill up your pressure canner with 2 to 3 inches of water. So I fill it up and I basically just hold this in the pot until it gets to the line. That's my easy way to measure the water. This is the weight that you need for a pressure canner. And this is a little bit of olive oil, which you'll see I'll use later. I'm going to actually put this along the rim of the canner, and that's going to help it create a really nice seal. Normally in canning, you'll use these metal lids, and this is a magnet, so that way you can pick up the metal lids out of the hot water if you're heating this rubber seal. But I only have one of these, so I'm going to use my reusable Tattler lids along with their reusable rubber bands. You can see this creates the same effect, except for these you would throw away after one use, and these you can continue to use over and over. So I don't actually need my magnet because I'll be using these plastic ones, but I'll still need my jar grabber. So essentially what we're going to do is heat up the rubber ring so it becomes pliable. I'm going to put it in this plastic top, fill this up with broth, put this on top, and then finger tighten these metal rings. So just until it stops. Now this is an all-American pressure cooker, and I have provided you with a link in the description. Inside of here, I'm going to test my water, and you can see that it comes right up to the line. I have a rack in here at the bottom, so that way the jars aren't sitting directly on the bottom of the pot. They're elevated just slightly. Now today I'm going to be pressure canning quart jars. So we can fit 7 of these inside of this. If you wanted to do pint jars, you can fit a lot more pint jars, and they're actually going to go in 2 layers. You will have 2 racks, and one of these racks will sit on top of the first layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've turned this on high, and I'm letting that come to a boil. And I'm going to go ahead and put my rubber rings into this little pan, which is on medium heat, so those can start getting really soft. You want to make sure that your jars are clean and there's nothing left over along the rim or on the top, so that way we can get a good seal. And I'm going to be filling these with hot broth. It's very important that the broth is hot, so that way there's not a huge temperature difference between what's inside of here and the hot water. If there's too much of a temperature difference, then your jars could potentially break. We've filled up these jars with the hot broth, and you can see I've filled it up to the lip of the jar, this dividing line here. If you bought a canning set, you might see one of these funny little tools, and this is to measure. This is actually the inch mark. That's 3/4 of an inch, half an inch, 1/4 inch. So you want this to be at an inch. You put this on the edge of the jar, and this should just barely touch the tip of your liquid. And so you can see I've just got a little bit of liquid there on the tip. If you were doing something like tomatoes, you could can those effectively in a water bath canner. But for low acid foods like broth or green beans or canned corn, things like that, you do need to have the added pressure to make sure you get a seal. So what I'm going to do now is just make sure that the lip of these jars doesn't have anything on it. There's no broth, there's no fat accidentally sitting on the lip. I'm going to go ahead and clean these off. So we're going to go ahead and put the lids on. So remember, as we're putting these lids on here, we just want to finger tighten them because we want the air to be able to release out of here and seal down. You'll see that the water level rises as you add the jars, and it should end right below the top, or actually, that's perfect. It's right at the top here. See, look at that air. It's already bubbling out of there. Now these are sealed, so the air is escaping, but the water isn't getting inside of the jar right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and create the seal right here. So remember the olive oil? I'm gonna take a little bit of this and just put a thin layer of oil all around this beveled lip of the canner. It's very hot, so you definitely want to use a paper towel, but what this is going to do is help it create a seal when I put on the lid. So you're going to start with opposite sides and tighten, and then go to another opposite. So I put the jars in here, and the heat was a little bit above medium. Now I'm going to raise the heat to high and bring it to a boil. You'll notice that it's boiling when you start seeing steam come out of here like a tea kettle. And we're going to let this vent for 7 minutes after we start seeing the steam.
We all know quite a number of people who have everything that it would take to be happy, and they are not happy because they want something else or they want more of the same. And we all know people who have lots of misfortune, and they are deeply happy. They radiate happiness. Why? Because they're grateful.
After 7 minutes of venting, we're going to put this weight on here. You'll see that it says 5, 10, and 15. We're going to use the 10-pound weight and put it on top. And the steam will actually cause the weight to rise and will start to hiss. So between this gauge and this gauge, telling us when we hit 10 pounds of pressure, it'll say 10. We're going to do that for 25 minutes for quarts. If you were doing pints, we would do 20 minutes. The next step is to turn it down so it's not doing this. I'm going to turn my heat down to medium, and hopefully this will stop doing that, because right now it's above 10 pounds of pressure. That's why it's releasing. There we go. Look at that. We're trying to find a happy medium here where this isn't going to pop, but it's going to stay at 10 pounds consistently. So I need to find the place where it's just going to simmer at 10 pounds of pressure. So I have it at slightly above medium heat, and that seems to be doing fine. If this starts to be popping quite a bit, I'll turn it down a little bit. But right now, I'm going to set the timer for 25 minutes and hit go. It's been 25 minutes. I'm going to turn off my heat, and I'm going to walk away and let this cool down. At the point where my pressure gauge goes back to 0, I'm going to remove the weight and unbutton the hatches and take off the lid. The pressure is down to 0, so I'm going to take off this very hot pressure gauge. Okay. It's normal for the broth to bubble after you remove it from the canner. It's still really hot and it's been under pressure. So what this is doing is, as it boils, it's releasing a little bit of air here, and the heat is pulling the top down and creating a suction. That's how you pressure can broth, you guys. And if you'd like more information on how to make broth, check out the links below to both the Revive Kitchen and the Flavor Crash Course.